Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the Hands-On with Maxon webinar. But first, let me share my screen. So, can you all see my screen? Awesome.
Yeah.
I hope everyone is doing fine. And today we are blessed because we are joined by so many guest speakers. And yeah, let me talk to you about the format of Hands-On with Maxon webinar. This is a 6 series of webinar dedicated to introductions to color grading. So the idea is to help the students and the beginner colorists to get up into their game in color grading. So in sessions 1 up to session 3, we learn all about the basics. And session 4, we were joined by Diego and Moritz, Diego and Johnny, to talk about the workflows and pipelines in color grading. And in today's sessions, our plan is that we will ask the guest speaker, how do they join, how do they get into the industry and become a colorist? And what are some challenges that they've been facing? And maybe they can share some story to inspire the beginner colorist and students to carve their path. So yeah, in today's sessions, we were joined by 4 different guests, but you cannot see one of our guests because Tony has technical difficulties sharing his webcam. But we were joined by Anthony Barry. He's a filmmaker based in Los Angeles. And then also Diego Yama. Diego is a colorist based in Colombia. And Jonathan McFeeters. I think if you were here last week, you already met Johnny. Johnny is a colorist based in Los Angeles as well. And finally, we have Moritz Fortman. And Moritz is our product manager in Maxon at Maxon. And Moritz was also a colorist and is still a colorist up until today, right, Moritz?
I'd say so, yes. I mean, I don't do that much coloring anymore, but I'd still consider myself.
We will ask you a lot of questions about that. I hope to hear a lot of cool stories about that. So if you missed last sessions, those sessions are recorded and you can visit our YouTube channel. It's called Maxon Training Team, and the previous recording was supposed to be under Hands-On with Maxon playlist. And all the webinars hosted by the training team will be uploaded here. Same like this sessions as well. And then you can also get free t-shirt. So in today's sessions, if you go to the handout, you will have a PDF link and PDF file. And in the file, there's a link that you can use to go to the Maxon merch store. And there's a password that you can use to get a free t-shirt. So you can choose any of this t-shirt and you don't have to pay for the price, and you just need to pay for the shipping cost, which is around about $4. And if you're interested in learning more about your skill, if you're using Magic Bullet Suite, for example, or Cinema 4D, and you can visit our Maxon certifications to try and test your knowledge. And also you can use this type of test to refresh your skills. And then if you want to check the upcoming future events, feel free to visit maxon.net/events. So in today's sessions, we will ask our guests about their story, how they get into the industry. And to start our sessions, we will pass the baton to Tony. Tony, are you ready?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. It's the voice of the Phantom. I have no picture today. Sorry about that.
I will make you presenter, Tony.
Okay. So let's see.
So, Tony, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I mean, I would say I'm kind of done a little bit of everything, and I like to basically, you know, put the whole piece together. I like production, I like post, and I love, the whole overall, end product. So if that means anything, I've been a cameraman, I've been a DIT, I have been editor, I've been a finishing editor, I've been just a camera tech advisor. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. And
That's
I'm based
awesome.
in Los
And you've
Angeles,
been
California.
shooting your own documentary film as well, right?
Yeah, that was definitely a that's a passion, You definitely have to love it. That was about 4 years of blood, sweat, and tears.
That's awesome. I mean, if you can show us the link to your documentary film, that
Sure,
would be
sure. And what was that? Let me see. I'll pull it up. One second here.
And by the
And
way,
I'll share my screen.
if you guys have any questions to our presenter today, feel free to drop them in the questions, and I will relay the questions to the presenter.
So this is the website. This is if you want to check it out, feel free. It's wecallheryolanda.com. I did this a few years back. I've already kind of toured it, and for me, it's kind of sitting on the shelf right now. And I've yet to really kind of push it via distribution or anything like that. But still needs a few more tweaks. That's the hardest thing about doing your own stuff, is you never know when to stop. So, but yeah, thanks for calling me out on that, Max.
Awesome.
Um,
How
so yeah,
did you start your career, Tony? Tell us about it.
I tell you what. How about this? It's an evolving career, and I would say that I never fully started. I just kind of jumped in. It was like a game of, if you ever did like jump rope or double
Yeah.
dutch, right? You just the rope is already bouncing up and down, and you just got to jump in, and you got to fit the rhythm. So like I never really started. I always kind of just hopped in and went for a challenge. So I'm still, every day is a new day, and there's no what do you call that? There's no clear path. You know, you always kind of challenge yourself. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. Um, if somebody is like how do you call it, in the same path like you, building their career in filmmaking, for example, or
Mhm.
wanting to be in the industry, editing or colorist or anything, um, do you have any like inspiring stories that you can share with us?
I have a couple pieces of advice. I would just say,
Like
like,
for example, shoot for free. Is it okay? What is your opinion about that?
I think
Because
I think
that's a lot
free.
of things that
Yeah.
we normally face nowadays, right? It's like, let me do this project for you, and you got exposure, things
Yeah,
like that.
well, here's the thing. I think free is the F word, I wouldn't call it free. Always make it like a trade, and try to see if you can get something. Show that, if you believe you have value, right, and other people believe you have value. So by default, I wouldn't say free. If you offer up something, you say it's free. It's different. Like if you have interest and there's a dual interest there, and you do something, the whole point is that you're interested, they're interested, and then you have that shared value together. And you might make, whether it's like free products, free food, something, but never really call it free. That's my personal advice. I would say you want to barter for something, but you also want to have a shared interest. So it's not free if there's a shared interest there.
That's really a really nice way to put it, man. um, and what is like if I'm starting as a filmmaker, how what is the best advice that you can give me, for example, to
Buy a
create
camera.
demand, to create a demand in
Yes. Buy a
buy a camera?
camera, live with your camera, love your camera, hate your camera, get to know it, tear it apart, break it, put it back together. Like if you know everything that camera does, and you know its capabilities, then it kind of inspires you to even want to like one up and get the next one. Or but the more that you play with this stuff, and the more that you get familiar with it, then you can speak the lingo. You can speak the lingo, you can take on the professional job. Like, I think the best thing you can do for yourself is to get familiar and get acclimated with the environment you want to be in. So if you know that you want to edit, you buy yourself a computer, you get the software. Software is free now. There's so many, like DaVinci Resolve is 100% free. Like
Yeah,
get
and it's very
even if it's
capable as
just
well.
with your phone. Yeah, if you just shoot with your phone, you can start. But if you really want to get into that role, go and buy yourself a camera. Like, I bought myself a camera like early on. It was out of my price range, and I took out a little small loan to do it. But it's kind of what you do in your off time kind of determines what you do in your on time, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
spend the money, put the extracurricular time in. It's the same thing like, after school programs and sports. If you ever really want to be serious about sports, you do it all the time until you become, good at it. So I just say, like, the more time that you have with, with the gear or with the craft that you want to do, you can always go and shoot, whatever it is that you're passionate about. But yeah, you need to keep doing it, keep kicking the tires.
How important is a portfolio in your opinion?
I mean, I feel like it's evolving. I mean, you almost look at it like, I mean, I guess when I was younger, I probably looked at every single thing that I did that was new, that was interesting. I was drooling. I can't wait to show this. Wow, I can't wait to show this. And then you start working on things that make you sign a little non-disclosure paper, and that's when you know that that you're doing something right. So then you can't stop. You stop caring about sharing your stuff, and you start caring about the lessons that you learn from it. So portfolio is great. Experience is better. Understand the language, understand the environment, and then get to know the people. And another thing I'll add, everybody loves to mention networking. Networking is natural. It should be a natural process. When you meet somebody and you're talking with them, it doesn't have to be like, oh, are you in the industry? Oh, can you help me? That's a big thing out here. And, I think networking, as long as it's natural, it becomes, what do you call it? It's not a chore. Like, just getting to know somebody can actually be really fun. So you don't have to make it a predetermined goal. You just need to make friends and just be yourself.
That's really great to hear, Tony. And one more question, Tony. What as a one man, how do you call it? One man band filmmaker. I'm sorry to put it in that term
Nah,
into.
no problem. Now I'll clarify.
Yeah, what is your biggest challenge when you're doing your project as a one man crew filmmaker?
I mean, the biggest
And
thing is,
how you normally resolve them?
well,
How do
I've
you
grown since then,
resolve
but
them?
the best thing I could say is the more that you've done it by yourself and you know all the aspects, you start understanding where you need help and where do you fit as far as the stuff that you actually know and as far as the stuff that you need some help. So on the same note of when you were asking about free stuff, the way that you are willing to do stuff, there are other people around you that might be willing to do stuff like voluntarily, or everybody gets a little bit of something out of it, and it doesn't always have to be monetary. So what I would suggest is, when you do anything by yourself, that's when you learn where the weaknesses are as far as what your work. But it's literally a big deal to lay it out and plan it out, because that'll help you understand, oh, you know what, that should be on a tripod, that I can do with my hands. I'll hold on to this camera, that camera's on a tripod, and I'll use the table for that one. So, like, map out your time and take some. The most important thing you can do in any of this is preparation, period. Whether you get paid for it or not, preparation is the biggest thing that you can gift to yourself. If you respect the job that you're going to do, even if it's a little job, no matter what you can do, when you're there, the best thing you can do is kind of map it out and understand what you're getting yourself into. So pour the time into your preparation. And that's the one person show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hey, by the way, if we want to follow you, where can we follow you, Tony?
I think LinkedIn is probably the best way to have a conversation, or even to, you know, kind of, you know, if I enjoy having two-way conversations on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best situation. So I'll share it here. I think I still have like sharing capabilities. Let's see. Oh, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is it, and this is my URL, and I'll type it in the chat. So, but yeah, if anything, touch base with me on here. I don't bite. I'm willing to talk to whoever, and yeah, I've had some great chats in here, and there's some good forums in here. And things tend to be, you know, this is a professional network, so you can connect with people professionally across the globe.
All righty. And yeah, thank you for sharing your story with us. And so far, there is no questions in the audience yet. And
Awesome.
is there any questions from you guys, from Diego maybe, or Johnny to
Do you
Tony?
think about color a little bit? You know, when you're out shooting, Tony, you know, I like to pick up a camera once in a while too, but when you're out shooting, are you thinking about how you're going to handle it in post? What are you prepping some things, prepping the color looks before you go out and shoot? What are your thoughts on that?
I think I just go flat, and I try to make sure the exposure is correct. I think everything flat, raw if possible, and allow the color science people like yourselves to kind of dive in and do the special you know, touches to it. But if I know, you know, regardless of shooting flat or just shooting raw, I make sure I white balance, and I make sure things look correct. And then if we, you know, if and then also, you know, kind of by shooting raw or shooting flat, I give a high ceiling, you know, for you know, colorists to kind of dig in and make something really blue, really blue if they want to, or, you know, so I have it in mind, but I just leave a large ceiling for, you know, the creative colorist types to come in and really do a good job.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump just because you know,
Right.
but if anything,
Well, thank you for your time. And
absolutely.
maybe yeah, thank you for your time, Tony. And have a nice day.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All righty.
Tony, take care, buddy.
Thanks, Tony.
All right. Talk
So-
to you soon.
So yeah, that was Anthony Barry, and now we will ask one of the colorists in the room, and that would be Johnny. And yeah, Johnny, you are working with Radley Studios at the moment, right?
I am. I just wrapped up a job with Radley Studios, Century 21, kind of a commercial package, and now I just started working for a company called Warm Springs Productions out of Montana, of all places. But they're doing a lot of good work up there. Cool group of people, and yeah, keeping busy and do my best as a colorist and hanging on, you know. So yeah, it's great. It's great to be here, and really thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to everybody today.
Awesome. And yeah, maybe could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you get into your career?
You got it. Wait, I'm a dad. I'm 49 now. I got 3 awesome kids. I got a wonderful wife who used to work in post-production, so she understands the crazy hours that sometimes we have to work, or a call from a client at all hours that might come in. And that happens, you know, that happens to Tony, it happens to anybody in our industry, you know. Hollywood, maybe you're in Hollywood or you're not, but the Hollywood work ethic is like sometimes you got to drop everything to fix something for a client. You know, the client comes first to an extent. You know, you don't want to sleep in your car on your drive home or anything at a stop sign. That happens, but you don't want that. But I mean, you got to, you know, you get out there and work hard. I got my start. I came out from Southern Illinois University on an internship to come out to Hollywood, and I ended up staying. I was in grad school. Shout out to all the SIU guys out there. You know, Michael Cioni went to Southern, and he's done great things. So that tells you how great that school is. So that guy's a superhero. But I got out here, and you know, I got my start basically. Like a lot of people in Hollywood, you become a PA, production assistant, or you just, you know, you're sharpening pencils, you're doing stuff that, you know, God knows what, and you finally land somewhere. You know, I landed at a great company called Rushes. Rushes, there's one in England. It's not affiliated with that, but which is still a great company. And I landed there. I got hired by a man named Ron Kirk and Chico Dowden, Jeffrey Dowden, 2 wonderful people. And my mentor, who became my mentor, Chris Lyons, was a fantastic colorist, and kind of took me under his wing. And I was a runner for maybe a month, and then all of a sudden I became an assistant colorist. And then Chris started feeding me, and Chris was a genius. He started feeding me work. He's like, I'm going to get you going, so maybe eventually we'll get 2 color bays going. We'll start doing that. And I just learned. I started doing favors for a lot of Chris's clients. Now, the clients that we had back in the day, we were a telecity company, and this is back in the film days. This was, I think I started at Rush's in '96, and I was coloring in '98. I started taking on jobs, maybe '97. It moved really fast, and that, as a beginning colorist, you look for opportunities, try to find, if you could get in somewhere and be a good listener and a good learner and be able to kind of be that Swiss Army knife. That's what you really want to be. Companies are looking for Swiss Army knives. They want somebody that can kind of handle this, do that, and do it with a smile, be pleasant and upbeat. And yeah, some days you might get a job, you're like, oh, this is gonna be a tough one, but you just gotta kind of grin and bear it. Sometimes you'll find your landing spot. But a great place is to really kind of come to these kind of webinars and meet people, that can help you out a little bit. And I did that. And Chris Lyons he was just a great guy, and started feeding me work, and his clients got to kind of know me. It's like they had a free job that came along. It was like, well, let's see if Johnny can do it. But I was in, brick and mortar. I was in a building that kind of allowed that. They said, okay, let Johnny do this job with Boyan Bazzelli, or let him do this job for Stefan Chapsky, do some kind of favor, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, these guys, men and women, Ellen Curris, these great clients started to get to know me. And something tragic happened to Chris. Chris was a wonderful, beautiful genius. He went on a trip and he didn't come back. And so all of a sudden, Rush's still kills me to this day, but Rush's was without a colorist, their main colorist. Chris had started a company called 601, and I was his assistant. We had a few other people that helped out, and they're like, what are we going to do? And jobs were coming in, and they're like, one of the guys was like, I think it was Noam Murrow from Biscuit. And he's like, I think I'll give Johnny a shot. Let's give the kid a shot. And I got a shot, and I brought it to the table. I was able to do it. And if, as a beginner, learn from those mentors if you can. It's a big deal. Just listen.
Mentoring is big, right?
Soak it up. Yeah, because you can get better and better at it. And then something could just happen. You don't know. And if you're ready, be prepared. Like a Boy Scout, be prepared. Always be prepared. Learn as much as you can. Chris Lyons would it's really hard sometimes as a busy colorist to learn something new, because if you're super busy, like Tony said, when you're super busy, like, how do you have time to learn some stuff? Well, Chris used to have me learn stuff and then teach him. So, and that was great. And little by little, I just kept going, and the clients that I had done favors for, with Chris, they stuck with me, and more. And little by little, you just keep building up, and then you make a name for yourself. And that's how I got in the industry. It was a whirlwind. It was really hard. Hours sometimes were 4 a.m. to 12 midnight the whole week. And it could be crazy. You'd sleep at work a lot. We get through it, but that's where you get your chops. You got to get your chops somewhere. And if you can just sometimes jobs are harder than others, but you get your chops, and get your chops with a smile. Just be like, okay, what can I do next to help out? How can I learn some equipment? How can I be that Swiss Army knife? And that's the deal. You got to be a Swiss Army knife if you want to kind of get started. Maybe I kind of did that question at opposite, but that's how I got my start in the industry. And then
nice.
Just kept kind of moving forward, and that's how I got a lot of really big clients. They, like Russell Carpenter, Wally Pfister, and I worked with a lot of these big guys right out of the.
So same like what Tony is saying, networking is really important.
Oh my gosh. And then that person would say, hey, who's the colorist you use? Like, I use this kid from Rush's. He's all right. And all of a sudden, you build that up, and you just work your tail off. It's a pretty cool, it's a good gig. You just go after it, and then after a while, I was at Rush's for a while, and then I eventually started my company called Libertad Soul. And I know that name's like, what's Libertad mean? It's liberate and soul. I used to surf by myself a lot, so soul surfer, I guess. And so that's where the name came from. And so we just started getting it together, and it was tough when film went away. And then eventually I got busier and busier, and went from dailies and finishing colors to I just finish now. But But dailies, is where chops can be. Dailies went away for a little bit, and then they came back, and they're so important, man, because that's where a DP can come in and talk to you and get that. I don't know how many times at 4 a.m. in the morning I'd have we'd have like an Oscar-winning DP come through the door. You're like, wow, he's here at 4 a.m. And they're like, yeah, this is where you learn about what you shoot. This is a laboratory. Tell us it was a laboratory. Color's a laboratory, and we're color scientists. So.
I know that today you want to show us one little tips about color in understanding what gamma is. But there's one questions that I probably can ask you. There's a question from Greg, and what are the biggest mistakes you see camera operators, DPs do that cases the most headaches? I think what is like the biggest mistakes camera operators or DP sometimes make that creates headaches in color
night issue. When you're setting up a day, this is just an example. There's a lot of examples, but probably underexposure. Be careful with that. That's where we're going to get a lot of noise with these digital cameras. We've got so much dynamic range now. I mean, it surpasses film, which is I never thought the day would come where I could say that, but it does. But underexposure and overexposure. I mean, the simple stuff. I mean, really, I hate to say, but you are shooting for post. I mean, once in a while, a cinematographer might say, oh, I'm shooting for post again, but yes, yep, shooting for post, but put your style on it. You still got to light it. You still got to do everything as a cinematographer that you need to do. But yes, if you can give me that range like Tony was talking about, that doesn't mean it's taken away from creativity at all. That just means you're making sure we can get to the creativity, get to the vision that you and the director and the production team have come up with. Don't send it to us with all that, don't go Harris Savid and go all underexposed. We're stuck in a hole. And he's a brilliant cinematographer, of course, back in the day, but don't underexpose everything. And, all of a sudden we're trying to dig it out and somebody's like, yeah, I want to go with a different look. And we're kind of stuck with that. Maybe if you're at that level, you can do that, of course, but, you gotta deliver it in a package that we can stretch out and look like something great. But say day for night, just did a thing. Watch out for skies. The sky is bright, and even when the sky looks like it's pretty down, it's going to be pretty bright. So when you do day for night, try not to show that sky. Maybe a pinch here and there, so colorists can window it down, or we can key it. But be very careful with that day for night. Watch for your highlights, because those are hard to contain and it's hard to sell it. So when you're doing day for night, we're trying to trick the audience. So you got to make sure this works. So make sure, watch out for your highlights, make sure there's enough down at the bottom that we can work with, But again, you got to watch out for that. Watch that underexposure. Make sure face, we got to find our faces. Because what really is like, oh, they missed it, they're underexposed is when faces, we can't save that face. Same with sound, when sound sounds terrible, we're stuck, because color and sound are very similar, sound guys will say the same kind of thing, But anyway, that's my spiel on day for night. That's a tough one.
So that Max, same thing like you, Diego?
Yeah, no, I would actually like to compliment, to say something. Tony was saying, I love your camera, hate your camera. I think the biggest mistake is that most of them love so much the camera. So they think that the camera can make everything, can have all the information. So they don't see any mistakes of the camera. And I think one of the main problems is that when you feel that everything is perfect, you forgot the essential things. You forgot how to exposure, and that's the main problem. That's the main problem. So as Tony said, love your camera, but also hate your camera.
That's a really good analogy, man. Hey, by the way, Johnny, there are two more questions in the audience. Christopher is asking if how to do the round trip if he's doing a edit in a Premiere Pro and doing the VFX in After Effects, and then the color is supposed to be done in Resolve. And then also Charles also kind of asking what type of file formats that you prefer. And then I think this goes way back to our sessions last week, right, where you were talking about the pre-conform workflow. Do you mind to show us again kind of like the short versions, because I think both Christopher and Charles can still see the recording in the YouTube, but could you show us a little bit about
Pre-conform workflow?
the best way to do the pre-conform workflow?
I sure can. And you know, Roundtrip going back to Premiere can be difficult. You know, it shouldn't be, but sometimes what can happen is that Premiere doesn't always read the files correctly. And so what Resolve likes to do is the best thing to do is to put prefixes in front of those files when you output them, because Premiere will bring them all in and it might be like, okay, this file came from this clip, but we use 2 pieces of that clip, so the name of the file is the same. So in Resolve, it'll be like V101, and then that same clip might come up down the timeline a little bit, and it might be V106. That there will give it a separation. That prefix can help you out. Now, I'm not an expert at Premiere, but I've been through it, and I know the Roundtrip can be a little bit of a bear. So that's what I can say about that. But you know, I worked many hours with Johnny Batchelor from Henry LA, editor here in Hollywood, trying to figure out this Roundtrip to Premiere, and it can be tough. But you know, try the prefixes that it doesn't like prefix, or it does like prefixes. You try and name it the same file, it's like, oh wait a minute, you know, it can be a little bit of a bear. Pre-conform workflow, by the way, let's see, let me bring that back up. Let me show my screen here, and let's go to, well, you know what I can do? I'll set it up right now. It's media, a pre-conform workflow, just to tell you guys what this is, and we touched on it, you can check it out on YouTube, but what that is when you're kind of in a jam, it's a plan B. What it is, it's an EDL that's created from a flattened single layer sequence out of Premiere or Avid. So basically you're working with one single file and an EDL, and that EDL has to be made from that flattened file, and that EDL is going to be used and it's going to chop that up. So say you're in Premiere, you're like, man, this isn't working, everything's not happening, the files aren't coming in. So what you need to do, to answer your other question there is about files I like to work from. If I can't work from the original files, I need to do a pre-conformed workflow. I like ProRes 444s, and you know, the XQ as well. You know, use that family. That's got a 12-bit depth, so you've got some room to get the blacks out. And I know you're going to say, wait a minute, I need the raw files. I need to work for the original files. Well, that doesn't mean that you can't go back to some of those original files if you've got an issue. You know, you can still call up the editor and say, hey, you know, I can't get this, I can't dig the blacks out of this this particular scene. Can I get the original file? We certainly can. You just ask for it. You know, no big deal. But this will help you get the job done. And you know, a producer is going to hire the person that can get the job done. You know, it doesn't matter how much schooling that you've been through, all this whatever. You got to get the job done. You know, there's deadlines, and if something just isn't working, I mean, a lot of us colorists and editors and so forth out there, we've all been given a drive and said, hey, everything's on there. I'm not sure where it's at. Names have been changed, but there you go. you know, you got to figure it out. But let's check out the pre-conformed workflow. Can you see my screen okay, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna do is I've got one set up here. Let's, you know, let me just do it quick. Color. Oh, whoops, there we go. I know what I'll do here. Sorry, just getting this set up real quick. Take me a second. Caught me off guard. I was ready with something else, but that's okay. This is going to have to be what we can knock out here real quick. Go good. Okay, so okay, pre-conform workflow. I'm just going to go quickly through it. Make sure your files are kind of organized. I like to put them in like a 2-color, you know, 2-color and from color. I like to put pretty organized when I'm working. Let's see what we got here. Maxon 2-color. And if they're organized in your root, you can bring them in here and create a bin. In that bin, I've got a file here that Tony actually created, which is great. Thank you so much again, Tony. And within that, I'm going bring that in, make a bin. You brought it in, it just does it automatically. Go to timelines, import, pre-conform EDL. Okay, so again, checking it out, we brought it in. Right click on the gray, not on the file, on the gray, right click, timelines, import, pre-conform EDL. Go to where the EDL lives, and it happens to be here. Bring that little guy in. Now, when folders comes up, go ahead, make this a practice. Don't click on master, but click on the folder where the file lives. Because if you've got a few other folders in here, it might start looking for that. We're going to go OK, and then you can now double click on your timeline, and there it is, chopped up for you. So we're kind of like, all right, here we go. Chopped up, looking through it. There it is.
Johnny, sorry.
Yes, we don't see anything.
I think we're seeing a frozen screen at the moment.
That's not good. All right.
Now, yeah.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start over. No big deal. I do it all the time, so it's all right. And guys, this is only my second webinar, so I do my best. You know, the first
I
one was
appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
my second one, and coincidentally enough, this is my second day as a colorist. So it's like, holy cow, you know, you just gotta give it a shot. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Pre-conform workflow. Here we go. This is my root up here. So here we are on the media page. Pre-conform Maxon. I've got this set up from last week. 2-color. We're going to drag that into master. All of a sudden, here's my file. Thanks again, Tony. We're going to right-click on the gray panel below that, import pre-conform EDL, and then go to the EDL in your root wherever it belongs. I generally like to keep it pretty darn close or in 2-color where my file's at. Open that up. Okay. It's going to ask you to go to master or 2-color. We're going to go to 2-color. If you've got other folders in this structure, the thing is it'll start looking for whatever, you know, the line of the easiest, you know, wherever it can go fastest, it's going to go. So click on 2-color and then double click on your timeline, and there it is. And you've got it all chopped up and ready to go. Looking good. I like to double check it with what I often do is I'll lock these guys up, and then I'll take my 2-color and I'll just bring this down here. And I like to kind of check and see if the cuts are on or not, you know. And you can just kind of go through each one and see, hey, is everything there? And looks like it pretty much is, you know. So one little tip I like to tell you to do those, just make sure when you're looking at the head here, make sure that everything's lined up at the head. You know, it should be, but you know, sometimes you could possibly move that over, you know, and when you zoom back out, it's like, oh yeah, everything's in there, everything's cool, but you want to make sure it's all right up against the head there. And I hope that works out. I'll go check out that webisode. I think we go into it a little more depth. It's pretty cool, yeah. But it's a way, again, this isn't to replace your traditional AAF or XML, you know, using one of those. Now that's the first way I want to do. I do want to work with the raw files if I can, but especially as a beginning colorist or editors that are up and coming, you know, or just you get stuck, man. Stuff happens, you know. So names get changed. Again, you know, you want to get the job done, and when your back's against the wall, when you get a nice, you know, file that's a log file that's been transcoded from, say, an ARRI file or a red file or Sony, whatever it may be, it's going to bring all those guts over. You've got that bit depth. That's the thing about bit depth. That gives you that room to bring out the details. And if you still don't have the details, ask your editor to give you a raw file to replace the ones that you're not happy with. You know, so that's how you do that. You know, it's a good it's a way to do things, and I work on stuff all the time. You know, when you work on network promos and things like that, say you get a bunch of footage from the NFL or Major League Baseball, You may never get the masters for that stuff. You're going to get some kind of transcoded thing. So it's just what it is. You got to get these things done in a day, maybe faster. You got to get them out. So you can't always work with the best file or the original file. You'd like to, and especially like in features and big things like that, there's a little more time to put these things together. But say with projects that are quick and fast, you gotta jam. You really gotta giddy up. You gotta giddy up and do it. And work. As I have one little thing that I have prepped to show you how to work a little faster. And do I have time to show that or no?
Yeah, is it the one about life is all about gamma thing or another one?
Different, but where am I at? Maybe it's taking. What do you think? How much time do I got?
Oh, you still have 15 minutes. That's fine.
Oh man, that's great. All right, So here I'll wrap it all up anyway. So this is how that works. Go check out that video though, because I'd like to go in more depth on this. But there's a couple other tips I wanted to show you guys, and I'll rattle them off and try and get through them. So, but does that sound okay? Does that seem more? Any questions?
Sounds okay. Thank you very much for kindly rewinding that spontaneously. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to say something, Johnny, is that, I mean, when you are in these things about workflows and so on, all they say to you is conform or sync cut. They never tell you about pre-conform. And as a colorist, for me, I forgot absolutely about that. So it was until your last session that you remind me that technique that I say, okay, I will definitely ask for the pre-conform workflow, because all what I was doing was sync cut detection and conform. That was my two workflows to go to edit to color. But now, because of you, because of attending of these events, now I have a third tool that is the pre-conform workflow. That is good.
It's a good plan B. It's like, hey, just because you're gonna, especially up and comers, I mean, you don't get to work on features that Spielberg shot. You just don't get to. It's just you'll get there, but if you're doing a favor job and somebody's like, I got this favor, they're like, I shot it on 8K. I got a 75K camera, and I want you to bring it in your Mac, and you're like, well, how about you transcode that first, make a nice fat, a nice big, a lot of bit depth 4x4 file for me. And it doesn't have to be a ProRes. It could be, you can have a DPX, you can have whatever you want. Just tell the client, hey, this is what I need from you, especially if it's going to be kind of a favor or a low budget, and say, this is how I want to do it. As a colorist, you have every right to say, here's my spec sheet, check it out. And there's a spec sheet that can be provided at another time, but it's in part of the program that we did last week. But come up with a spec sheet that you provide your client to say, this is what we've got. If it's a high budget, big deal project, then multi-clip. Yeah, heck yeah. But if it's not, then all right, I want one. If you're a colorist, you're like, hey, I want one clip. I got an EDL, and give me some audio to go with it. Give me some references and things like that. And then you're good to go, but it shouldn't be up to you as the colorist to figure out what somebody else's idea was. And you're going to try though. And you can also be a superhero by bringing this idea to the table. Like, here's how we can save some time and money, Mr. or Miss Producer, and say, hey, I can save you time and money if we do this. Doesn't mean that we can't go back and use the raw file. We can still get that. But it's like, I'd like to get started now on the job, and I've got another job that's starting tomorrow. I've got today is the favor I can give you. Then there you go. This is what we can do to get the job done. And as a colorist, like I mentioned earlier, to be that Swiss Army knife. I'm still a Swiss Army knife. I still got to figure stuff out. It's our job to help that client get their job done. They're coming to us, and there's I always say this, Sparkle from Technicolor, I used to use great colors. He'd always say, we're working for maximum client return. Maximum client return. We want people to come back and ask us to do another job for them. And if you can figure something out, that's you'll be a superhero for sure. So this plan B, pre-conform workflow, man, that's like Wonder Woman's rope. You're just swinging that, catching stuff, bringing it home, man. So getting the job done. But I set up a couple of things. What other questions did we have? There was a couple other. Here's something that I think one of the questions was, Max, what's the next question?
you want to show us something about the term life is all about gamma. Could you explain that?
I set a little something up here for us. Color hide this guy. Here's my I always think about color. You guys see this okay? As a rubber band. I put a rubber band on here. I work with wood. I do a lot of stuff. You got to be a jack of all trades out there. Now, gamma lives in here. This is where life is. One time, I went to a camera prep, and there was a DIT there for one of my clients, and he's learning about color. He's a great guy, and they were trying to kind of color correct, just using, we'll say this is our highlights, this is our gain, and this is our lift, you know, and our gamma's inside. So blacks, whites, midtones. We call it by a few different names. Well, color works like this. Now, highlights, when I move the highlights, okay, everything affects everything. If I move the highlights down, color, you know, this rubber band represents a color spectrum. It's just simple. If you pull on the highlights, it pulls down on this. It'll pull down on the mids and a tiny bit of the blacks. If I pull up on the blacks, it's going to change things in the midtones. When I change the midtones, it really can affect the black, the highlights, the lift, gamma, and gain. It can affect everything. So everything's in the middle here. Don't be afraid of the midtones or your gamma. Don't be afraid of it. A lot of folks will start coloring and they'll even out the highlights, they'll even out the low end, and then they'll forget about the midtones. Like, well, I guess that's okay, because I'm a little afraid to adjust that because it messes things up. But let me show you something here. Let me get on to what I was talking about. And what we'll get into is, let's go. This is one of Tony's things here. You know, here we go. Let's find a nice shot here. And then what we'll do is we'll turn on, my scopes look a little funny right now. They're kind of elongated. Let's take a look here. Let's pretend this waveform gap, this waveform monitor, let's say the top, here's our lift up here. I'm not really going to do much of a color correction on this one, but take a look at that. Let me bring up, whoops, I got a board here, but let me bring up our gain. Take a look at what's going on at the top. See how it's affecting the middle and the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
And then here we got the bottom. See how it affects the midtones. But check out midtones, how it affects, brings up and down so much from the blacks and the whites, you know. So it's very much like a rubber band. That's how I just kind of came up with that little analogy, you know. And what you want to do when you set up a picture is bring up your highlights, even them out. You can, as you can see here at the top, even those guys out to find a decent white, you know. Then this is just my little workflow. Then I go to the blacks or your lift, as technically speaking, you know, even those out. On a waveform monitor, you're going to see when you have all colors kind of showing on your waveform, right here, you're going to be in RGB, okay, so you can see everything. Take a look at this. Okay, I can separate. You see all three colors are separated here. Well, when I get those guys to get a nice solid white, that's when I know I've got a true black. Scopes don't lie, so you've got to find it. And same thing on the white. It's probably her shirt or the sky back. We've got a bald sky back there. You know, find it, get it in there, and work the midtones a little bit and say, all right, you can see what's going on. She is quite, you know, yellow, and let's bring her up, bring her down. And you can see that the midtones are still affecting your highlights. You got to go back. It's kind of this, it's like a clutch in a car. If anybody's driven a car with a clutch or a truck, you just got to keep doing it. And eventually you're going to get to a place where you like it, and that might bring some saturation out. You know, you can figure out your look and add a few things. That's kind of why I think it's kind of like a rubber band. So don't be afraid of those midtones. Now, what also I think is kind of a thing that we should do is take a look at, I like to set things up. Now I'm going to show you how to set this up real quick. I like to use a template when I color. Always use a template. This is my thing. This is my jam that I learned. That's not even my jam. That sounds kind of weird thing to say, but it's set it up. It's a template. You know, we know templates throughout history kind of, you know, if you're going to do something, you set up a template and it's just there. And I don't use everything within this in my node structure here, but you can set up a nodal structure any way that you want to, but I kind of do mine this way. And the reason for it is, say I often come across scenes that have 1 or 2, 3 people in it. There's often a sky in it. I have no noise reduction at the head and at the tail, depending on what's going on. You know, I often just leave them turned off. I've got highlights here because in case I set a look up, if I make a look and I'm like, all right, this is great, but I want to save those highlights back down here somehow, I can always go back in and dig those guys out a little bit if I want to bring them back down. You know, it just depends on what your workflow might be, you know. And then with faces, a lot of times, you know, we walk into a scene. Let's get this up a little bigger for you. We might walk into a scene and I'm like, I look at this image and I say, okay, wow, let's see. We've got a lot of skin tones, and skin tones are probably one of the coolest things to color, and they're the hardest. You know, you got a table of people and everybody's got a little bit of skin tone. I like hers right out of the bat. I think she's looking really pretty. Okay, I feel like she's probably got some green, and she's pretty good looking, but we're gonna see what color she turns into when I set up the look a little bit. But again, and then I know he's gonna be really red. He's gonna come out kind of reddish. So when we get going on this, go back to my screen here, let's just make some space over here. Back to my screen here. Now what I would do is just kind of set up at my primaries here, go ahead and get it looking decent. Now what I'm doing, I'm kind of trying to find some blues in there, and let's get back to there we go, that's back to normal. Find some blues because our image is without a lot of blue. It's in there, but it's really warm, you know, so get things kind of timed out. Kind of concentrate, making sure our face looks pretty good. Now over here, you'll see face 1, 2, 3. On face 1, 2, 3, I kind of go through and I put the faces where I think they might need some help. So here, this comes up quite a bit. I'm like, oh, bring her up a tiny bit. Face number 2, just kind of maybe take some green out, give her a little bit of lift. And then face 3, which I haven't, looks like I didn't get it ready yet. Sorry about that. Whoops. I'm sorry, guys. I thought I had this ready to go. And then on face 3, you know, quickly put it on our friend here and say, okay, let's see, maybe we need to take some red out, and you can key it real quick. Do what you got to do, you know. To make it right. But in doing that, that gives you, if you set up a template, and it can be however you want. I often have I call this a football, but it's just your vignette. Have your session kind of ready to go, and you might customize this setup for whatever the job that's coming up. Maybe you've got a LUT that comes up. Put these in your setups, in Resolve. If you stick them in your power grades, you know, this is my base setup right here. If I just clicked on it, it's going to come up and it brings up my template. Maybe I've got one that's there's one for area, you know, if I'm working on an area job, maybe I've got a LUT that's in there as well, you know. And say you've got a setup and you're like, hey, I want to use some of Maxon's tools. We certainly could incorporate some of Maxon's tools in your nodal, say that 3 times fast, in your nodal structure, and it's in there. And so when you decide to jump in and do one of your projects, just save these guys in your power grades, and they're there anytime you open up Resolve, and when you're ready to go, that's it, man. That's kind of nice. It saves you time and effort and helps you get the job done, you know. Bring that along with your pre-conform workflow and you'll start saving time.
Yeah, it's like building a muscle memory working with those fixed node structures, right?
Oh man, it sure is. Yeah, and once you set it up, then you kind of know it's there, you know, and you can set it up however you want. It doesn't have to have all those nodes. If you're working with say you've got a pre-colorist, or you've got somebody else you're working with, you know, I've worked back and forth with Tony on some projects. You really have to just tell the person you're working with, this is how my nodal structure works. This is, you know, if you get worried about it, because it can kind of freak some people out when they see a large structure like that, but it'll save you a lot of time if you just have it ready to go, you know. And But again, lift gamma gain will get you to 90% of the job. You'll finish, you know, you can do most of the stuff you need to do in lift gamma gain, and then you add on the fun stuff, add the frosting on with some of the other inputs or you know, other things, gadgets and things you want to add on to it. It can really make a pretty good image look premium, you know.
Before we close your sessions with some questions about advice, Johnny, there is a questions in the audience regarding the round tripping, and he has a sequence cut in Premiere Pro with some composite completed in After Effects, but the client wants the color to be done in Resolve. And what's the best way to round trip this? He was asking if he suspect that he will need to export each clip post color and revisit the composite after.
You will, yeah. You could, you know, you're going to want to deconstruct that nested those clips, and bring those into Resolve separately. Naming, make sure the naming conventions are good. Make sure things aren't, you know, different as you export them. Of course, you can, if you want, export it as a composite. See if it's something very difficult to break apart. You know, if it's got a lot of elements, you're going to need to break it apart. Maybe it's got a few elements, and so you might pass it out as, you know, burn it out, you know, bake it in, burn it out, see if the colors can work with it. You might be able to, if you know, if you're in a big rush, if you're, you know, obviously if there's certain elements that need to be taken care of, which is usually the case, you're going to need to break it down and bring it into Resolve and then bring it back. The big thing is keep names and time codes very, keep your attention on names and time codes, and don't let those get messed up. On the way out though, you can still, with some you know, there's a on your deliver page, you know, you're probably still looking at this, I think. Say you're going to go into individual clips file, custom name, source name. You're going to dump them out with source name, but you can use unique file names and just stick a prefix on them. What the prefix is going to be. See this number 1 here? We're on video 1 right now. Let me just give you an idea. Here we are on video 1. This is clip 1. This one is going to be named video 2, probably clip 1, video 2, clip 2, 3. That's how it's going to give you prefixes. Video 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on top, it'll give you video 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are, or whatever it is, those are the prefixes that are going to be laid in front of the naming convention that are the original name. Now, some folks might say, wait a minute, I want the names to stay the same. Well, they certainly can, but Premiere doesn't always import everything. And maybe it's changed in a little while, but you can put prefixes on and it'll work. And you can always remove the prefixes, you know, but to stay organized and not to save on top of anything, I often put prefixes on the way out, and it seems to help me out quite a bit, and the editors, you know. So it's like, oh, hey, this works. As long as an editor knows that you're going to get files back with prefixes, it's okay. You know, and you can always do a test too. You know, editors are great. Editors are really busy. Cinematographers are really busy. We're all really busy, but don't be afraid to talk to somebody and say, hey, let's chat this out and figure out a workflow, because you're going to thank yourself when you figure it out at the head of the job, as opposed to figuring it out, you know, as opposed to giving somebody else that same drive you got that was a rat nest. You know, you want to keep it organized. A car won't drive straight without a straight frame. So lay the groundwork down early, and figure out the problems early, and then you'll be cool in the end. You might have problems, but they won't be those catastrophic problems. Say you colored a whole job for 3 days and then it's a train wreck. You know, awesome. You don't want that.
Any difference though between using prefix or suffix?
No, you could go either way if you want. I always do prefix, it's right at the head for me, but you can do suffixes as well if you but give it a test. Try it out, work with your editor, say, hey, here it is. You know, you can always dump out a Resolve EDL as well if it's just a simple thing. If you want to flatten it out, create an EDL real quick. That's simple enough. If you're on the edit page, you go up the timeline. We're going to go to export, edit. It's file. It's files, export, timeline. You click on this guy. Now this screen comes up. Click here. Now EDL with audio, EDL, you can also dump out your, an AAF if you need to, and see there's the XML, and then there's an XML, but you can figure out, there's a variety of XMLs here. So you can kind of figure it out, but I'd say if you're going to dump something out, try and keep it as simple as possible, especially if it's something that's nested. Try and simplify that as much as you can. Do a quick test with your editor. Just figure it out. And hey, you're a Swiss Army knife, right? You got to be one. Yeah. So we'll figure it out, but trial and error is the best thing to do. And I'll say the company I do a lot of work for now, Radley. There's a guy there named Bo Nilsson and Keith Van Orden, and we put there, Bo is a post director, and just, these guys are geniuses, but we put our heads together and we figure stuff out before we attack something. And don't forget that you can do that. We're humans, we can talk to each other. People will find time to think, if you're like, this is going to get the job done right.
Yeah,
and definitely. That speaks to the masses. It really does.
Well, yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Johnny. You were mentioning before that, as a colorist, if you want to begin as a colorist, be a Swiss Army knife, do everything, and then networking is also important. What other tips that you can share with us if we are just starting as a colorist?
Okay, right here. I had it set up. Okay.
Wow.
Here we go, and I just talked about it, but people are more important than parts. People are more important than parts. You gotta just try to work with each other, make sure that you're good to people. You can get more done with honey than you can with, with salt or lemons, honey or lemons, you can get more done. It's better to be like, okay, be really nice to people, but be firm, like say, okay, this is how we're gonna do it, but come to the table, bring something to the table as a beginning colorist, like really know your gear, like do your best to learn as much as you can. And I'm a colorist, and I don't know, and I have to be honest, I don't know everything, because I've been in the industry for over 20 years. I've been working on DaVinci products, Resolve products forever. That's what I got my start on. I don't know everything, but I know a lot. Just like Tony said, he grabbed a camera, he got out there and started shooting. Make sure you get out there and figure out photography a little bit. You're going to get a lot of clients that come to you that know photography really well, but they don't know video color. They don't know what happens when color gets put in motion, and it changes. Because you can make a single frame look incredible, but all of a sudden when that frame starts moving, it's like, man, you got to start tracking stuff. You got to figure it out. So figure it out. Get a shoot with some. You got an iPhone, so you can get out there and shoot something. And but that's probably the big advice. But get along with people. Work hard to just get along with people really well. The person that is part of a team that is easier to get along with is the person that's going to get the job over the person that's really technical but gets upset really quick or gets frustrated really quick. We all get frustrated. This is a tough gig. Hollywood's tough. It's a great career, but it's hard, man. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's rewarding and it's fun, and we're doing something creative. And but just make sure you think about that. Be a good person out there, and you're gonna get jobs because you're cool. You definitely will. If you're cool, somebody's gonna hire you. And if you can find and along with that, try to work with people that are also cool. It's if you're with people that are angry all the time or just can't do it, I know we all got financial issues. That we, hey, I got 3 kids, I gotta work, man. But if you can find a group of people that are really cool, man, I can't say enough about Radley Studios that I work with all the time. I'm freelance, but I've been working with them off and on for 6 years now. Probably 90% of my work, is with Radley, and I just those people are good people. I don't know. Even the president of the company came. He came when the COVID hit. We were doing a Netflix gig, and we moved that. He came and brought equipment to my garage, and we loaded up my garage in Redondo Beach, and we continued to do a Netflix job from my garage when COVID hit. And everybody else was trying to figure out what to do next, but Bo figured it out, Keith figured it out, and Christian figured it out, and Johnny, I was like the drummer. I was like, all right, what do we do next? Well, we did it.
Awesome.
It's cool, man.
So, is there where we can follow you at Radley Studio, or how can we follow you, Johnny?
Oh man, I got this set up wrong too. I just don't take this guy anywhere. Is that right? Well, I have it set up. Let's get this out of here. Maybe it's a different one. But anyway, Libertad Soul, look for that online and you'll find it. And I'm on certainly on
Are you in LinkedIn as well?
LinkedIn. Yeah, I am. So it's but my company name is Libertad Soul, and just type that in and you'll find a link to my work, and it's on IMDb as well. So you could but LinkedIn, yeah, look for me there, and yeah, I'll answer any questions I can. It's been a real pleasure, and thanks so much for attending today. And
Johnny, thank you very much for your advice and for your story, for your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
all right,
And yeah, it's our pleasure. And now we will move to Moritz, and we'll ask about his story, because Moritz used to be a colorist. He was a colorist by trade back then, and even until now probably. He can share with us about that. But Moritz is our product manager at Maxon, and I think Moritz is managing Magic Bullet Suite, the tools that you can use for your color grade, for finishings, for fixing a lot of stuff. So, Moritz, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Max. It's a pleasure.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, I'm Moritz. I'm a product manager for Maxon, as you said, Max. I'm from Germany originally, but I've been in the US for about 10 years or something like that. Also moved around a bit, lived in Argentina and Bolivia for a while, and Switzerland. So I like to travel. If it wasn't for COVID, I'd probably be hanging out with Diego right now in Bogota, ideally. My background, I studied, like, it was called moving image design, but essentially mixed media, and was always drawn to, making things, like putting videos together, making music, both things. So, and yeah, and I'm happy to say that I still do that and still enjoy that. And yeah, maybe a bit how I got to where I am now, and my work as a colorist. So I started working for Quantel, which most of you probably don't remember. They were, back then, there was Baselite as a color correction solution, and there was the Quantel, the IQ, the Pablo. And so they were present in most big facilities, like across the world. And I got sort of an apprenticeship with them, and that was my first job. And so I learned all about the color suites and such, but kind of dialing the buttons, right? I didn't really know about color correction itself, but I knew the system really well. And that's how I sort of got exposed to the job of a colorist. So first in the UK and in Latin America a lot through Quantel, and then they also like helped me to, well, with them I moved to the US, so I moved to Los Angeles with Quantel back then, and then got stuck here. And so how I learned was initially working for Quantel, I trained people, right? I mean, I trained some of the biggest colorists here in Hollywood without knowing much about color, but I could tell them, what buttons to use to do what they wanted to do. So it's really funny. It's a nice way of learning. And then also because that skill set was kind of rare, after a while people asked, well, you can use the system. Can you work for us? Can you freelance? And I was like, sure. So initially I was obviously not doing color, but I was assisting colorists doing the job, because the nice thing with color, I mean, as you guys know, you can kind of adopt your skills to any tool, right? It's not about the tool, it's sort of the, getting a feel for the job and know what needs to be done. Yeah, and that was the case often for those colorists. So they kind of knew obviously color, but they may have come from a different system. They needed someone to tell them, lift gamma gain is here, here's a S-curve and whatnot. And I was able to tell them that, and the real great result for me was that I learned a lot about color correction in those days, and that also led me to, hey, I really love this, I want to do this more, and started working, initially freelancing here in LA, and I got my first solid gig in New York at Goldcrest Post. Feel like these guys, yeah, shout out to Goldcrest, they really gave me a shot, like with relatively little experience. I started the evening shift. My mentor was John Dowdell, one of the greatest colorists alive. So check him out. I mean, even some of his recent work, Carol and whatnot. But his IMDb is as long as probably IMDb has been around. So it's really yeah, it's worth looking him up. And yeah, and it was great because they were like, you know, we give you a shot. You know, we'll see if it works out. If it doesn't, you'll be gone very quickly. And I worked there for 3 years, and then started working independently. I had an opportunity to buy my own Quantel system. Then, I mean, this is like where Resolve was just getting popular, right? This was still sort of in those early days of Resolve and being accessible as, you know, a software that you could have on your desktop computer. And but that's also where I was introduced to Resolve, and then ultimately switched to Resolve. And that was an exciting time because for me that was the first time where I sort of realized, hey, I can do this myself, right? I can, you know, I don't have to. There's suddenly these gatekeepers in a way, right? The big facilities suddenly went away, and I was like, I can do this from my home. I mean, you know, obviously within reasons, right? I mean, I didn't have the setup, not the sound system, not a projector, but I could get a decent monitor and, you know, color panel and whatnot, and actually get. And I think that's amazing. And I think that's also the amazing thing about these days, right? That we have all this tech that's relatively accessible, and you can actually pull up really great quality products on a relatively, I always say relatively because I don't want to make it sound like stuff doesn't cost anything, but you know, it's definitely way more accessible. Like the Quantel systems back in the days, they were like $1 million, right? One hardware and software, you know, so just to put it into perspective. And yeah, and then so I was working as a colorist, and I did that like working for companies or independently for quite some time. And then I moved back to LA and got in touch with Blackmagic Design because I was interested in kind of doing a hybrid again, maybe teaching and still doing color, and kind of got sucked in back into sort of working with a tech company. So that's always been kind of my thing. I've been always sort of moving between working creatively, tech company, working on software, and that was a great time. I mean, working with them. Yeah, and that ultimately led me to working for Regine initially, and then now, of course, Maxon through the merger. And I get to work on Magic Bullet, which I love. You know, that's obviously sort of the area that I'm really passionate about, color correction tools, yeah. And also work on Pluralize. So again, that sort of falls into that conform, right, media prep stage that I'm also, you know, very familiar with. It's syncing audio basically. Yeah.
We have a nice comment from Dustin about Magic Bullet. Dustin was saying, Moritz, if I had known that I could use Colorista within Lux inside Resolve, I would have used Resolve from years ago.
That is a nice comment. Thank you, Dustin. Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I think, you know, there's so many different ways. I mean, later I want to show a little bit like, you know, workflow that I like in Premiere, but I feel like there's so many ways of implementing Magic Bullet into your workflow, right? The Resolve workflow is a great one. So just as an extra layer, right? Just to create your show look or do whatever you want to do, but there's really great ways in combining it with your, you know, with your favorite host app. Yeah, glad to hear that.
Awesome. And yeah, we have a questions. I think you guys can chime in from Greg, and he was asking about the control panel. Is that tool is really required or not? And I think I also would like to give a shout out that you can also use Magic Bullet Suite with a control panel as well, right?
Yeah, so control panel is not required. In fact, it wasn't even, that's one of the later additions that we did in the last release. In Magic Bullet 14, we added tangent support for looks. So you can now use the tangent controls with most of the tools within looks, including colorista, including the 4-way color corrector and so forth. Also some of the other tools, which is really cool. You currently cannot use it in the standalone colorista plugin. That's something on the roadmap, but currently, but it's not required. But you know, if you used to work with a control panel, I mean, for me, it was like I had looks that I've used for so many years, and suddenly I was able to use it with a control panel. It was like, wow, like it unleashed sort of a new level of power, right? I suddenly could work much more intuitively, faster, and yeah, more fun for me. But yeah, it's not required. You can do anything with the mouse or whatever you want.
What about you, Johnny and Diego? Do you guys also use control panel? What's your opinion about it?
Oh, yes, I do. But you know, I started out with, I worked at a facility and we had all the Resolve pen. We had everything. You know, I mean, back in the day, Resolve was $650,000, like the clientele crazy prices. But yes, I found myself. You know, you can really do a lot of things with a trackball. I use a Kensington with a trackball type thing. You can get a lot done with one of these guys. A lot of audio guys. So I get it over here. Something like that. You can get a lot of work done with that, you know, or whatever mouse you have that you like, or if you like a pen. But I didn't get a panel. Right now I use the Blackmagic Design Mini, and I love it. It's fantastic. But you know, I finally got it. I just got it maybe, I guess last year I got it. So it's, you know, I did a lot of work from home with that Kensington mouse, and it's an expert mouse, I think it's called. I think it's $100. But you can do a lot, you know, and you get good at it, and you'll figure it out. Again, create some templates and you know, looks that you have already you can get to. I mean, that's it. You know, streamline your workflow. That's right, guys. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say I love panels. I love panels. I mean, the reason I don't use curves is because I have panels, and I'm so lazy to go to the interface and start like playing with the curves. So yeah, I think for example, I don't know, for a technical like correction, maybe mouse is a good option. Maybe you can play with primary bars and so on. But when it's the time of the look, it's like you have the two hands in your panel and you start like feeling. And as Moritz says, it's intuitive. It's intuitive. So when you move one here, you move one here, and you look at the screen. So the best thing of that is that you are connected with your image. You are connected with your image. You are not thinking anymore on the software, on a mouse, something like that. You are connected with your image. And when you do that, like you get good results. Sometimes you don't know what you did because you were just moving. You were just like Johnny says, like putting the leaf gamma gain to fight between each other. And suddenly you find a good result. So I will say, I mean, it's not required, but definitely get a panel. If you want to start, get the Ripple one that is in some ways cheap and start growing. I will say I will definitely not get the 30,000 because I love to travel, so I will spend that money traveling.
No, I believe, or no, what's it, the small tangent one that just has 3 trackballs on it. It gets around $300. I don't know if they still sell it, but I graduated to the Resolve one. But man, if you can just have those trackballs, that's a big deal. That's speed, and you got to get the job done. You know, that's speed.
Yeah. I see Moritz is using tangent there.
Yeah. So love the tangent. Also would say the same. I mean, the Ripple. You know, ultimately it's about this part here. So with that, I mean, that's 90%. You know, everything else is great, but you can start with the smallest one, and I think start from there. Yeah.
So Moritz, would you like to tell us a little bit more about Magic Bullet Suite?
Sure. So Magic Bullet Suite is a suite that consists of several tools. The flagship tools are colorist and LUTs, and you could say that it's all aimed towards color correction, stylization, film emulation, also beauty work. So it's really it's a full-on set, and yeah. So you know, Lux is a great looks builder. So it comes with up to 40 tools, close to 40 tools, and hundreds of presets that just makes it really easy to either build your own look, get inspired by presets, take a preset and modify it. Just, you know, what I love it for is when you first get started with a job and you know, you can kind of test out the footage, right? Try to break it, see where you can push it. Looks is great for that because it has, you know, has some subtle looks, has some extreme looks. So it gives you a quick idea of, you know, what works for this footage. Where can you take it? If you doesn't necessarily mean you have to go with that preset or one of those presets afterward. afterwards, but it really kind of is a great way of experimenting. Then there is Colorist, which is just a really powerful color corrector that works within After Effects and Premiere and Final Cut. And it's just a great color corrector. I mean, it comes with, again, with a preset browser. You can export LUTs based on your color correction. It has a great HSL tool, saturation versus sat adjustment tool. So I'll show that a little bit in a bit. But yeah, it's just a really great set of tools that, and I love it because it's versatile, right? You can I mean, Lux works in almost any host app that I could think of, and you can sort of make it work with, if you, let's say you're a colorist and you work in Resolve, Lux is such a great addition to just like this in your tool set, right? To kind of get inspiration, to try out certain things, to and then again, Colorista is a great color corrector, just that works. The nice thing also is that these tools work across different hosts. So, if you are in a position where you switch hosts or you work with people that work on different hosts, you can take that experience and go to your host and replicate it there and share presets and so forth. Yeah, sort of a magic bullet in a nutshell. I can show, I mean, I don't really have a real demo plan. I just thought I just show real quick
Sure.
what, how I like to use Colorista and Lux sort of in combination in kind of, it asked me for some permissions or something. I'm not sure what's going on here, but I'm just opening up Premiere. Just give me 1 second, and then if you tell me how to share my screen, I will do that.
Max?
Yeah. I think it's a you are a presenter, Moritz.
Okay.
I think it's how do you call it, the Mac things? You have to give a permission thing.
So that was a thing that just popped up. Hold on.
Yeah.
Haha. Let me see. Make another one presenter. Screen sharing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I have to quit the meeting?
Okay. Forget about it.
But this is working out, probably not, right? I think I have to quit and come back.
Yeah. Well,
do you want me to do that? Otherwise, we can do this. I think it's fine.
I can show a Magic Bullet Suite. That's no problem. That's no problem at all, Moritz. I can show that later on if we still have time at the end, toward the ends of the webinar. But now I think the burning question is, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that just starting out as colorist?
Yeah, I think I mean what I said before, that I think it's a great time to get started. I think that's for me, that's very true. I mean, as as Johnny said, as also Tony said before, you can go out and shoot and post your own stuff, and so I think that accessibility is fantastic, and I think we don't shy away from a cheap camera, from your cell phone, from a GoPro, whatever you may have, right? I think the same principles apply. Then the other thing I would say is like do your own projects. Like, I think projects are really key. Also, take on any project.
Passion project, you mean?
Yeah, passion projects. But like, for example, what was really great for me, like starting out is independently, was working with students. So I did a bunch of student films, and they weren't always for free. I mean, some of them were relatively cheap. Didn't pay much, and so the occasional one was free, but not necessarily. These guys, they put together budget, they somehow raised some money, so it was okay. And often these guys became my clients later. So they were working on their final film, their final whatnot, and and we worked together and it worked out great. And the next time they came to me, they were they graduated and they were professional filmmakers, sending stuff to Sundance, and I got to work on the movie. So that was so I think, yeah, I think that's great. And there's so many niches. That's also something to be said. You know, of course there's Hollywood, but nowadays there's so many niches where you can kind of fall into. There's so many ways to get your stuff distributed. So it's really, it's a much more versatile world to be creative and do this type of work. Then something maybe a bit more practical stuff. I always find, and I'm not the best example of that, but I feel like studying and doing sort of has to be balanced, right? I mean, you can study a lot, you can also just do it, you know, because it's free resolve. There's no
just wing it.
Yeah, but I feel like if you balance the two right, I think that'll be the most productive. Because I do a lot by just teaching myself, and there's, you know, I could have just read a book and I could have probably saved like hundreds of hours of time. So I think, but then you can also spend all your time, you know, reading and not actually doing the work. And ultimately, you have to put in the hours, right? I mean, with color, it's, you know, I always feel like now I'm an okay colorist, right? Like I always feel like what I learned yesterday, now I'm pretty good. And then a week later, I always think, oh, I learned something new.
Yeah.
Now I'm decent, right? So it's like it's a constant journey. So yeah, there's lots of material out there. So I encourage to kind of to see, you know, tutorials are great. Also the right ones. Do a little bit of research, kind of from reliable sources, like the one from Diego, for example. You know, because there's also misinformation out there, so that's also something to be said.
Yeah.
And then just more practical sort of color stuff. I would say like start with the basics. You know, I feel like in color correction, like the basics cover really 80% of the work. Like when it comes to color correction, like keep it simple. Like you know, like yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
You know, like a big body of the work is balancing stuff, is stuff like that you can make work for an entire project, right? I mean, it's easy to work, as Johnny said, you know, it's easy to make a still frame look good, but, you know, usually in the case of a colorist, you have to make this work over, you know, whatever it is, 20 minutes, 90 minutes. And so it has to, whatever approach you take, and I would say most professional colorists do that, right? I mean, they have that in mind. They say, you know, I only have this chunk of time. They also don't have an unlimited amount of time, most of the time. Some of them do, but most these days don't have. You know, they're very restricted in terms of time frame. So find, you know, start with the basics. That usually gets you there. And when I started out, when I sort of you know, pitched for a project, I said I grade some stills for you. Usually we kind of started out with the most difficult shots, right? They kind of wanted to see how can we fix that shot. But I think that's the wrong way around. Like you have to, you know, it's important that the flow of a project is more important than that one shot, right? So you have to make sure you can make it 90% work, right? If there's one shot that's really difficult, well, then it's very difficult, and you'll try to massage it in, but it's actually, yeah, the overall flow of a project is more important, I would say. Yeah, and
That's such a good advice. Great advice, Moritz. It's really great. And if we want to follow you, Moritz, where can we find you? Where can we follow you? Where we can hear from you?
Yeah, LinkedIn also, and it's just my name, like linkedin.com, Moritz Fortman, all together. Email me. Like I'm always super interested in hearing from users, and you know, whether if you're a Maxon user, Magic Bullet user or not, right? I love to like learn how people work, you know, what your challenges are, you know, any questions I may be able to answer. So feel free to email me anytime. My emails are fairly simple, m_Fortman, so just my last name, Fortmann, and then at maxon.net. And feel free, because, you know, I feel like as a product manager, I'm the user here in the company, right? I'm the creative, and I need to get every creative person's like input, right, to do my job as good as I can. So I'm learning through our customers and through our, you know, future customers, and so please, I mean that. So if you have anything, feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much, Moritz. Thank you very much. And yeah, let's wrap it up with Diego. And yeah, Diego, would you mind sharing with us your story? What how do you get into the industry? But first, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm in Colombia. I'm in Latin America, so that's where I live, and I'm a colorist here, and I'm also a trainer. So as you have saw in these sessions, I like to mix both things. During the pandemic, probably I have educate more than grade, but next week I'm going to grade a video clip of a famous artist here that is called Carlos Vives. And I usually like to mix both things. I think that's the best part of my professional life. And I can say that, I mean, this is my hobby also. This is my hobby. I like to study. I like to see. I love technology, so I like to see what is new. And and that's a problem also because I spend a lot of time in the computer, like searching for new things, reading. But I mean, it's what I love, and I'm so lucky to do what I love. That's perfect. So how I start, how I remember that I was a student in the university, and they had the Autodesk products over there, and I was doing like my work after like after the lessons, and they bought the luster, and one of the colorists over there lived from Colombia to Brazil. So they like the director of that audiovisual like center says to me, "Hey, do you want to learn luster?" I was at that time on the flame, and I was yes. I mean, I was a student, I wasn't graduate, but I was yes, definitely. Give me the manual. The manual was awful. It was like 700 pages. Luster was difficult. I still found it really difficult as most of the Flame products. And yeah, and I start like that. I start like that because one person left, so I enter. And similar as Moritz says, I start doing student projects, a lot of student projects. Then I graduate, and then Autodesk, like I start to make contacts with Autodesk, and I became one of their trainers. And I was grading in Luster, but I was also like doing VFX more at that time. Probably I was doing more VFX in flame and smoke than grading because there were just like I think 2 or 3 lusters here in Colombia. And, and yeah, I mean basically I started like that. And I was at that moment like also training. Then I spent 4 years like grading all the time in Luster, or 3 years, I think so, in a company. And in one moment, I say, I'm tired of this. I'm going to become independent. I'm going to be freelancer. So it was like, let's think it was like 2013 or 14, something like that. And Luster was impossible to get as a freelance. It was impossible. So the option was Resolve. So I started like learning Resolve, and I found it. I don't know. I remember that at the beginning I was coming from Luster, a big panel and so on, and then I bought an iMac. I got the Resolve, and I was like, okay, I have to learn. But the best thing that I found it was that it was so easy. It was so easy to learn. I started doing. I remember that I started doing like many projects with the free version. A lot of projects, even like short films, many projects, because it was at that moment was $1,000 the license, so it was 300, so it was 1,000, and it was nice. I mean, I was grading, I was having company, I was also training, but at that moment I think one friend said to me, "Hey, why don't you teach me Resolve?" And I was like, okay, I mean, it's not Luster that I was teaching. It's not. It wasn't Flame that I was teaching. It was like a new software. So I download some tutorials. I remember from Report Time, and I download that tutorials, and I start like studying. And then I took my first Resolve class to a friend of mine, and I was like, okay, it's good. I mean, people are starting to learn Resolve. And at that moment, I remember, I don't know, it was 2014 or 15 or probably 16, I don't know. There was an event here in Colombia, similar as the NAB, a really small event. I mean, it's a big event here, but not compared with the NAB. And I remember that it was black magic over there. It was black magic. And I was so enthusiastic about going there, eh, meet people, have a networking. I was like asking many things. And it was in one part, it was like the result, part. And over there they have the big panel and so on. And I was saying, wow, I'm going to ask some questions. And I went there and I met Morris. And I can say that at that moment my life changed and even my professional career changed. So it was great because I met Morris. Morris speaks Spanish, speak English, I know you speak a lot of languages. So we spent a good time there talking. He showed me some tricks, he showed me good things. And it was so great because Moritz says to me, hey, write me anything you say, as he says to all of you guys. Right now he sends me his email and so on. So then the event finished. I was like, okay, I want to really learn more Resolve and I want to train people. So I was like, I remember that I started training people, also grading at like half and half. And I wrote Morris, like saying, hey, Morris, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And we were like chatting by email and we were like communicating. And I remember that, when was it? Then I was like looking at some courses to learn more because, the industry here in Colombia is, we can say, is small. And we all time say, okay, we need to learn in grading in Hollywood, in US, or even in Europe. So I was looking at some color grading lessons and I found the ICA, the International Colorist Academy, and I say, okay, I have some money. I want to improve my skills. So let's take a course in Los Angeles. So I went there. I took a lesson with Dado Valentish. He was at that time in the ICA. And I call Moritz and I say, hey, Moritz, I'm here in LA. Do you have time? We can meet. And yeah, we meet. He showed me the Black Magic office. Yeah, and he gave me a license that at that moment, after 3 years of grading, I was using still the free one.
You're not supposed to tell anyone, but I don't work there anymore, so it's okay.
Yeah, so he gave me a license, the dongle one, and it's the same one that I still use it. It's the same one that I still use it. So it was great. It was great because we made that relationship, and then okay, I start to make so many projects with that one. Then happens, I remember Moritz told me one day, hey, do you want to go to the NAB? And I say, well, definitely. So he introduced me with Patty, that is the director of Black Magic, the director of training of Black Magic Design. And it was a great, like, I don't know, Moritz was like and he's still my manager, my coach, and I have learned a lot of him. And it was like a break point in my career. I'm in South America, I'm in Colombia. So to go or to start working with US is difficult from here. So at that, I can say that Moritz is my coach and is my, like, the person that gives me like the hand. So that is perfect because when Johnny says that get around with nice people, I will say that that's the best advice. That's the best advice. Get around with nice people and good things are going to happen. Good things are going to happen. I can say that I love to study. I love to study right now with all of these color management like things that are difficult. I think all of colorists go back to study. We were all doing the same during years. Leave gamma gain, leave gamma gain. Now the problem is that with aces, leave gamma gain doesn't work. So we had to study, we had to check how the things are working. And I found really interesting that. I found really interesting. I think that right now the grading industry with HDR is going back to school. And I also think that the old colorists that are not studying what is new and that what are doing all the time, all the same, probably these new technology things are like, I don't know, are like pushing them to study more, something like that.
Just real quick, thank you for your kind words, Diego. I just wanted to say, like, but I didn't do any favors there. You know, it was really like I met you and you were the right person for the job, right? I think anyone you would have talked to, the same would have happened. You know, so I think it's like it's about to like put yourself out there. You know, be interested in what you do and communicate that. I mean, that's all it is, right? And if then the opportunity arises, then you know you're in a really good place.
Mutual benefit, so to say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I just say, I mean, it's like, yeah, he was saying to me that, but I was putting my best, and I always try to put my best, so it was like that, and we're good friends. That's the best thing.
Really cool, man. And speaking about putting your best, Diego, so when you are during your years of grading, what are the challenge that you've experienced? Is there any tips or tricks that you could pass on to us, the audience?
Yeah, you know, this is funny because the challenges are the clients.
Yeah.
that's the main challenge, are the clients at the deadlines. And the deadlines, it's one of the things that sometimes I say, wow, this is so hard, because I mean, do I'm sharing? Yes. So because I mean, the deadlines are becoming every time that you have less time to grade a chapter and so on. So that's the biggest challenge. That's the biggest challenge. What I would like to say is that let me actually share something here. Is that when I'm grading, or when you are grading, think that, do you see my screen here?
Oh yeah.
Okay, when you are grading, think that you are Sherlock Holmes, and after fighting, you think all the possible movements to win the battle. So I will play here, probably you will see it. So in this case, they are talking. And now he thinks all the possible moves. So I think grading is like that. I think grading before like experimenting with the image, it needs to be something like that. It needs to be something like that. You think all of the possible tools that you can use, and after that you attack the image. After that you attack the image. I think that's my workflow. You grade in your you grade in your brain, and then you grade in your interface. And that's the reason that you need to know how to use the interface and the tools and what to expect from them. It doesn't matter if Bestlight, if it's Scratch, if it's Colorista, if it's Resolve. You need to know what to expect from your tools. This is also really important. And one of the things that I like more is to be logic when grading. So for example, here I'm going back here. And one of the, I mean, you know, I was coming from VFX. And from VFX, we were doing tiers for everything. I mean, for everything. And also from VFX, I remember that the first time I entered to Resolve, I was doing a tier and I was going here. And I say, why this view? I mean, I need this one, because that's the view that we had all the time in VFX in Flame. And I was like retouching my tiers with this view, and I was like, no, this view is not, I mean, why? Then I realized that this view is really important. But I didn't know at that moment, because I was all like doing here. So then I start because in some way I learned the software first. I mean, I did the opposite. I learned the software and then I learned grading. Probably what you need to do is learn grading and then learn the software. So at that moment was like, okay, so why this view? The reason of this view is because you are going to make a selection in this color space that is called hue, saturation, and luminance. And that's the reason that this view is so important. So for example, I always think that before doing a keyer, you have to analyze what is the color that you are going to select. In this case, for example, I always do that qualifier in my brain before actually pressing this. So how do I make a qualifier in my brain? So for example, if I look at at this book, I will say, okay, what is the hue? Is green, between green and yellow. What is the saturation? Yes, it's a lot of saturation. Is it with a lot of luminance or less luminance? In this case, it has a lot of luminance. So based on that, it's like you are thinking in HSL. And it's the same with the qualifier. What you are doing is you are qualifying something based in HSL. So based on that, what you can say is, okay, if I want to make a qualifier in the skin, what I can say is first, what is the hue of the screen of the skin? It is red. It is red with green. It is blue. Also, it is really saturated or it's not. It has a lot of luminance or it's not. Based on that, what you can say is you can actually start like, I don't know, filtering your clip, doing something like this, and you can say, okay, here I have based on what I talk, and start like filtering. Yes, I mean this can be a workflow, but use your eyedropper just for help, and now you have like a similar or a best selection that already did the hue, saturation, and luminance. And then you like move here. And then you say, okay, but I have the face, but I don't have this part. So then you analyze. You say, okay, this is a part where there is not so much saturation. After that, you come back here and you go to saturation. And you say, okay, it wasn't working. So probably luminance. Yes, it was luminance. Yeah, so then you got that part. Then you move here and you say, okay, it's taking a little bit of the, I don't know, of the hair. So probably this part was saturation. Yes, something like that. And then based on that, it's like you analyze what are the colors in your image, and then you move these tools that you have here. And that's what I found, and I discovered after many qualifiers that I was just coming here. And that's, I mean, the first step is like you think what are the compositions of the selection that you are going to make. You start fixing it with it, and then when you have a similar, let's think a possible selection, you start like fixing it with the black and white, and that's the reason that you have the matte fineness tools. Also, I was coming from VFX, and in VFX the trackings needs to be perfect and the qualifier need to be perfect. That I love from color is that your qualifiers and your tracking and even your windows doesn't need to be perfect. So that in some way, I was so terrible doing trackings. So in grading, I don't need perfect trackings. So that's just a simple advice, but it's always great in your brain and then move the tool.
Thank you very much, Diego. That's always great. Yeah, back to basics, like what John is saying, and like any others people are saying, it's like basics. Get your basics right, and it will serve you well in the long run. And yeah, Diego, when somebody is just starting out as a colorist, what kind of advice do you will give them?
Yeah, I will say,
What kind of problems that they need to prepare themselves for?
Okay, I completely agree with Moritz that primaries are the kings. So in so many tutorials, we see that they use like 30 nodes, 40 nodes, I mean 50 nodes. So I will say, I mean, start like doing it with 3 nodes, 4 nodes, and then you will start like increasing if you need it. Don't go with so many nodes. And what I also found is that start replicating things. And don't think as a, I don't know, let's think, don't think as an Instagram colorist that you're going to show one still frame in your Instagram. Think as a colorist that needs to grade a full scene, and that all shots need to match. Matching is the hardest thing, and I found that even with some friends that have been grading for 6 years, or even for me, that when we spend more time is in matching. Matching is hard. Matching is hard. So definitely, I mean, it's like I don't know, like a runner. Practice all the time in matching, and practice also with bad footage. I mean, because when for example, the video clip that I'm going to grade next week is beautiful shot. It's beautiful. So probably will just be like saturation, something, some small thing, and that's it. But when it's footage that was recorded, I don't know, with some difficulties, that's where that's where you show what, in some way, what you learn and what you can do. Matching is hard. Working with hard footage, listing different cameras and so on is also hard.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Diego. And where can we follow you?
Sure.
Where can we hear from you?
In LinkedIn, you can search for my name and you can see all what I'm doing. Right now, I'm a freelancer, so I will say that for all freelancers, LinkedIn is amazing. LinkedIn is just an amazing tool. Try to publish something, try to comment. It doesn't matter if it's from you, just like, I know, from some other person, put it there. It's a great tool. And now that we are in a world that is all connected, definitely the best place to find, I think, work is LinkedIn. Be proactive there. And also in Instagram, definitely. You can search my Instagram is D and my last name. I use Instagram a lot, like to promote my courses, my lessons. I know that some colorists, a lot of colorists, like share stills from their work. Right now, if you are a freelance, you need to show yourself, and also go to the events. You know, in the event that I went, I met Moritz, and my life changed. So definitely go to the NEV, go to IBC, go all of that events, and know people, talk with people, and join with great people around also.
Great. Before we wrapped up our sessions today, there is one more questions in our questions area, and that is, I think it's the old age questions, and I think everybody can jump in to answer that. What is the difference between using LUTs and color grading? No, no. What is the difference with using LUTs and color grading? Well, I can start with that. LUTs, it's probably LUT is a lookup tables, and it could be like one part of your color grading workflow, right? And you can use LUT for transforming from one color spaces to the other. But LUT doesn't end up there. But you can also use it instead of manually normalizing your image. If you have like a log image, for example, from Arri Alexa camera, and you can also get the LUT from Arri website, which transfer the log spaces into the Rec 709. But that's just one part of color grading. That's not the whole pictures of color grading. And what's your opinion about it?
I think LUTs are fantastic, man. They can get you into some great worlds, and maybe you didn't think your footage could do. You know, what's kind of cool. You can always save all the looks that you work with, and those can, you know, every grade that you do, that can become a LUT. You can make it what you want, you know, but you can get something really interesting if you just start throwing. You're like, man, back in the day, you know, when the way the Resolve worked, or Resolve 2K Plus as it was, it had a little roller on it, and you could roll through the looks, and you're like, oh, this is great. You know, so I could have looks from one session, bring it in, start looking at it. That's why I use power grades. You know, you save looks that you like in your power grades. You just have them there ready to go. You know, but the thing with the LUT is sometimes I'd say as a colorist, you got to work from the seat of your pants sometimes. So get that grade looking good first. Maybe come up with some ideas. See if you can get the grade there before you add a LUT. You know, or sometimes even just a basic Rec 709 LUT that gets added crushes down your blacks too much, or it stretches the highlights off too much. Sometimes I could get footage and I'm like, man, I just wish these LUTs weren't on here so I can take them away, strip it down, start with that file, especially if it's a file that's really thin. We used to call negative that was overexposed or underexposed, we call it thin, you know. There wasn't enough detail in there. So sometimes you need that raw file with no LUTs at all on it to be able to get a good starting point and then move forward and get that image looking good from the seat of your pants. You're just figuring it out. You know, that's what they used to say, pilots would fly by the seat of their pants sometimes because we didn't have all this digital stuff anymore. And that's the difference. You know, you're flying, you're either doing it by your own means or you've got something that's kind of predetermined. And they're both great. Use them both, you know, make that image look as cool as you can.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much. And now let me make myself presenter, and I'll wrap up the sessions. Okay, you probably can see my screen now, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you very much for joining us today. And today format is a little bit different than the other sessions because we want to ask our guest speakers live. And yeah, it was really great to hear their story, to learn from them and get inspired. But next week, we will switch gear, we will shift gear, and we'll go into the creative department, and we will try to emulate some different looks. So if you really want to learn about how to create specific looks in either in Resolve or in Premiere Pro, we will show you some famous look that we can break down and share with you next week. And that would be our last sessions. But yeah, I hope to see the most of you next week in these sessions. And again, if you want to check the recording, you can visit our YouTube channel called Maxon Training Team, and it will be under the Hands-On with Maxon playlist. And don't forget that you can also get a free t-shirt. And to get the free t-shirt, you need to go to the shop link, and you can download the PDF in the handout sections, and you'll see the link to the shop. And there is a passcode that you can use to get the free t-shirt. So by using the code, you don't have to pay for the full price, but you just need to pay for the shipping cost, which is around about $4. And to check the future events, make sure you can go to maxon.net/events. And if you like to test your knowledge about Maxon product, you can go to maxon.net/certifications, and there you can test yourself. And one test that I would like to point you out is that Magic Bullet Suite test. So for example, if you're using Magic Bullet Suite and you want to test your knowledge, you can do this. And at the end, upon passing, you will get a certificate of acknowledgement as well. So the session has been really great, and I really thank you so much. And I hope to see you all next week. Thank you so much, Johnny. Thank you so much, Moritz and Diego. Until next time, bye-bye. Have a nice one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you. Thanks, Max.
All right.